Okay, just starting up the server. Okay, welcome everybody. Today we're going to do a very fun project. We're going to learn how we can use the context API in React in order to build out a dark mode feature on a website. And so right here, I have the final version. This is what we're going to be building today. It's a very basic website, just a few pages. And as you can see right here, we have a toggle switch. And if I click on this, it'll actually toggle all of the site styles from a light mode to a dark mode. And this also works on each page. So every page that you go to, it's going to leverage that theme. So there are a lot of different ways that you can accomplish this, but with the context API, I think it's one of the most straightforward ways of doing it. And so we're going to not only learn how to implement a light and dark mode feature on a website, we're also going to see how we can learn more about the context API, because it's a great way to be able to share data across an entire application. So let's get started with that. And as always, I am going to share the notes for the project. If you're watching live like you are right now, then you will have access to them right now. And then if you are watching this afterwards, like on YouTube or something like that, then it will be in the show notes as well. So let me, it's available on this repo right here. And I'm not sure, it looks like I don't have access to the chat. So I'm not sure if that got turned off or not, but I'll, oh, here we go. Wait, just move the button. Okay, so here is the repository where that's at. And we have a master and a starter branch here. And so we're going to be switching over. We're going to be doing this right from the starter branch. And that's how we're going to be building out the entire system. So let's switch back. And I'm going to open up Visual Studio Code. I'll stop the server, switch over into that branch. And I'll run the server again. And as you'll see, we have some basic styling and we have our basic application, but we don't have the light and dark mode. So that server is up and running. So if I come and hit refresh here, you can see it's just a basic website. And we don't have our toggler. We don't have a way of switching that mode instantaneously. So let's get started with that. I'm going to open up Visual Studio Code here. And the way I'm going to start with this is I'm going to create a context. So inside of the components directory, I'm going to create a context, and I'm going to call this our theme context. And I'm doing this in TypeScript. And for our theme context, I'm going to import React. We're not going to use a function, though. I'm just going to import React. And then I'm going to start essentially defining the rules of this context. And if you've never worked with the context API, I'll give you kind of a high level view of what it does. It is essentially a wrapper that you can wrap components, pages, different elements like that around. And then all of those components can reach in and get access to the data that they need in the context. So specifically for our example, every component inside of our application that will be wrapped inside of this theme context will be able to know, one, which theme is selected, but then also you're going to see how we're actually going to make the color guide available dynamically. So each one of the components isn't going to have to ask, are we in light mode or dark mode? Which color do we show? We're simply going to store all those values, and then we're going to pass back the styles that we want to use. So I'm going to first give a very basic type here, and this is going to be called our theme type. And we're just going to have two, light and dark. Those are our two options. And then in addition to that, I'm going to define the context itself. So I'm going to define a type, and we'll call this the theme context type. And inside of here, we're going to make a certain number of variables and functions available. So the very first one is just going to be the theme itself, and that's going to be either light or dark. That's what we're doing with our types here. And then we're going to give the ability to set the theme. And for setting the theme, that's going to be a function. So we're going to say you can set the theme, but you have to follow these rules. You can't set the theme to something except for light or dark, or else TypeScript is going to throw an error at us. And then after that, we're going to add a few colors. So I'm going to add a background color. That's going to be of type string, a regular color, a text color, then a background highlight color. And as you'll see, this is completely up to you and how you're wanting to build this out. With a very large application, you might have dozens of different colors. This one's going to be pretty basic though. And so I'm going to also give a tint color, then that's what our links are going to use. And that's it. This is everything that the context is essentially going to make available to the rest of the application. And then after that, we're going to create a variable called, and actually let's export it. So I'm going to create a variable here called theme context. And this is using, whenever you want to create a context, the way you do it is you call react.createContext. And then if you're using TypeScript, you can pass in the type. So this is essentially connecting that type we just created with React's context API, letting them know exactly what we are going, the rules that everything that works with it is going to have to follow. And to start off, we're just going to set this to null. Then after that, I'm going to define our basic colors. So I'm going to create a variable here called colors. And this is going to be an object. So we're going to have a light grouping and then a dark grouping. And so for the light, we're going to have each one of these values, background color, we're going to have each one of these. So I'm going to copy these, paste them down here, and then I'm just going to change them so they're actual variables. And to get that, I put a style sheet over here. And so for the style sheet, I'll have it so we can look at it at the same time. So when we're in light mode, we want the background color to be this kind of off-white color. So that has to be a string and a hexadecimal value. So that is going to be our background color. And then our regular color is going to be, let's see, we'll go with this highlight color, this kind of dark color here. Once again, that's another hexadecimal value. Now our background highlight color is just going to be white, just a pure white color. And then our tint color is going to be this primary one up here. And if you're building this in a large application, then you might even want to do something like, create variables that say, like primary color like this and set them. And I'll just do it here for sake of example. And then for the tint color here, we can just call that variable. And so in the future, if we ever want to change the primary color, we don't have to find all the spots that we called it. We could just change it right there. Now for dark, we're going to define the exact same list, except with different color values. So for dark, the background color is going to be that same highlight color. And then the regular color is just going to be, it's probably going to be, let's make it that off-white one. So that same one that we're using over here. And then the background highlight color, this one's a little bit different. Let's see, yeah, I did save it here. So it's just gonna be a little bit slightly different, just so we don't have like one giant, really dark screen. We kind of have a way of augmenting those colors. And then here, the tint color is gonna be white. So those are our color definitions. And as you'll see, we're going to be able to leverage this theme to dynamically reach in and grab the values based on whatever the theme value is. So those are the colors. Those are all outside of the context and the provider. You could store those in a different file or anything like that. And now we're going to create our actual theme provider. We're going to define a type for it. And so this is just going to be provider props. And this is just going to take in children, which it takes in a React node, which if you don't know what that is, it's essentially just any type of React component or anything like that. And we'll talk about what children represent as well. So now that we have that, now we can actually create our theme provider. And we're going to export it because we want to have access to it in other files. So this is going to be our theme provider. I'll close out of the style file. And then let's see. There we go. Okay, so here's our theme provider. And we're getting this red thing right here, this little warning, just because right now we're not returning any values and it's expecting us to return something. So let's just fix that right here. So I'm just going to say return a div, and we're going to put the children in there, and you can see that that goes away. So now that we have that, now we're going to establish some state values. So we're just going to use one piece of state here called theme, and it's going to match our theme type. And we're going to start off with a default value of light. So when the site loads up, it will be light. You'll be using light mode. If you're building an application and say you wanted to have the user be able to set preferences and set their regular modes, then you would need this theme provider to know if the user is logged in or not. And then you could do something like this, where we don't have a user, obviously, but we could say if there is a user, then we want to set the theme to the user theme, something like that. And then that way you'll always be dynamic and you'll have the ability to change it based on the user's preferences. So that is our only piece of actual state that we're going to have. And now we can define those dynamic colors. So now I can say const background color. And so the syntax that I'm using right here, where it says colors brackets theme, all this is doing, because colors is an object, and we know that our two values are always going to be light or dark. Because of that, we can say colors theme background color just like this. This is the exact same thing if you were to open up, say, like the JavaScript console, and say you set up a variable here called, colors, and we did light and then, color, something like that, and said white, and we could end it. And then we have another one called dark. So exact same thing of like what we have right here. And dark, we could just say black. And now if I say color, I can use those brackets just like this. And if the value inside of our theme is dark, then it will grab us that object and give us access to all of those values. So that's all that's happening right there, is whatever the theme value is, we're reaching into our colors object, We're grabbing either light or dark, and it's returning all of those values right there. So whenever you're building something like this out, it's very important to make sure that your keys inside of the object match, and that you don't have something like, an extra, an accent color here, and then you don't have it with dark, because then you're going to run into situations where you have some confusing bugs. So you want to make sure that those always line up. So now that we have our background color, we need those other ones. So we have just a regular color. This is going to follow the exact same pattern that we had before. So now we have all 4 of those colors. And now all we have to do is make those available inside of our provider. So I'm going to create a object here called state. And then inside of it, I'm going to pass in our theme variable, our set theme function that we use for our useState hook, background color, and then our background highlight color, and lastly, the regular color. And then at the very end here, what we can do is all we have to do is pass in what we want to export, which is that value, which is going to be state. So let's see, am I missing something? I have background color. Let's see, it says I am missing a value. Oh, and I know what it is. We need to actually call our context. So here I can say theme context dot provider, pass in the value, and then just close that off, just like this. Okay, so this is essentially going to be the brains of our entire theme management system here. So let's test this out. I'm going to go to our home page here. Or actually, let's start on the nav bar, because that's one of the spots where we're going to be accessing this. And so inside of this nav bar functional component, I'm going to reach in and let's just see if we can grab the theme. So I'm going to say const and then theme, and then we need to import this theme. And now we have access to it. So let's just put it somewhere. We can put it like right with one of the links. So here, I'm just going to put it around a div. And let's just see if we have access to the value. So right here, we should see something that says light. So if I hit save and it refreshes, oh, looks like we might have a bug. Let's see. Okay. Cannot destructure theme. Oh, and this brings up a great point. I forgot one important step. So in order to get this working, and to have the theme context available, we actually have to make it available to all of those components that need it. So in order to do that, let's go to our app component here at the root here. And inside of here, we're going to wrap up all of these values with our provider. So here I'm going to say theme provider, and then wrap all of these up. And now we should have access to it. So what I'm doing here is theme provider, when this is what we created inside of this context file, this is this function. And so the only way that the application or those components are going to know about what's in the theme provider is if we tell it that it has access to it. And so let's see if that fixed it. And yes, it did. And notice right here, we have light. So working beautifully. So you now have the ability to grab any of those values. So you could grab any of those exported colors, anything like that, now that we have access to it. So let's kind of start by building out the toggler, because right now, even though we have access to those values, they're not really that helpful because we don't have the ability to change it. So let's come in here, and I'm going to call our set theme function, and let's bring in the switch. So this is a really helpful little library called React Switch. So I'm going to say import React Switch from React Switch. I already pre-installed this. So if you have not installed it, then you would simply need to run a npm import React Switch, and then you'd have access to it. So inside of here, I'm going to keep this little theme value just so we can see if we're changing it, because we haven't applied any of those colors yet. And then here inside of right after the closing tag, or actually let's do it right before the closing tag. I'm going to create another div here. Let's give it a class name of ThemeToggler. And now we can call this React Switch component. And it takes in a number of props. So first thing, it takes in a onChange prop. And this is simply going to run anytime that the little button, the little toggler is pressed. So I'm going to say anytime that that is pressed, I want to call the set theme value, or the set theme function. And if the theme is equal to light, I want to change it to dark, and vice versa. So whenever you only have two values, you can use a ternary operator like this, and you can use it to toggle between both of them. So next thing we need to do, we need to say if it's checked or not. And for that, we can say if the theme is equal to light, then it is checked. And if not, then it's unchecked. So let's see if this is working. We have a few more props to pass it, but for right now, this should give us the basics. So right now it is checked. And if I toggle it off, notice that changed our value. So that is working perfectly. So you can toggle back and forth between these. And also notice when it's dark, if I come to contact, it doesn't revert back to light. So that means that everything is working as far as our provider goes, because it means that all of those child components, even when we're changing between routes, it still is able to maintain that value. So that is working perfectly. So now let's apply a few of the styles that we need to add. So we first want to do this. We can do it in the nav. We can also do it in the layout. So I have a layout file here that essentially wraps up all the styles. And it starts off right now with just a min height. So let's also add in that background color. So I'm going to import our background color from the theme context. And after that's imported, we should now have access to it. So now we can set this background color and set that equal just to background color. And anytime that you have a React object and the name of the key is the same as the variable you're using, you can simply type that key name. This is exactly the same background color is set to background color. And then we can do the same thing with color, which is our text color. So because this is at the very root of the application, what this means is these are going to be the defaults. And so we can change kind of the child elements, but these are going to be the default values. So if I hit save here and come back and toggle it, look at that. We already have the main components we need for our cool little dark mode for our application. So this is working beautifully. So now let's see what else that what else we may want to change. One thing I'd want to change is, you notice this card right here. When we toggle it, it's kind of hard to see that it's a card. So that's a reason why I wanted to use that background highlight color. So let's grab that as well. And then inside, I believe it is inside of the content itself, we're going to say background color and set this equal to the background highlight color, just like this. Hit save. And now if we hit refresh, toggle between it, notice here, now we have some differences in that color value. And so that is working beautifully. We can also update a few of these items as well. Notice how it's kind of hard to see these nav links right here. So we can come in to our nav bar and we can update a few of these values. So in the nav link itself, we can say we want the style value and we want to set the color equal to that tint color. We need to import it here at the top. And now if I hit save, when we toggle between the two, now notice even our nav links and those colors are changing. So here they're the primary blue-green kind of color. And when it goes in dark mode, they switch to white. So that gives you the ability to do that. We can also do something fun. We can switch the logo. So I had imported two logos. We have our regular blue logo here, but I can say that if the theme is set to light, then I want to use that regular logo. If it's in dark mode, then I want to use logo light, just like this. Now, if I toggle between the two, now notice even our logo is changing, and it's actually two separate files. So that's a reason why I wanted to include it, not only because I thought it looked cool, but also so you could see everything else that we've done up till this point was changing a color value. You can actually have this theme manage things like layout and which files are picked and rendered. I mean, you could have it where a entire block of content is there in light mode, but it isn't in dark mode. Something, in fact, that would be a really, we can even do that. I didn't put this in the final version, but say that you just launched this out, this is a brand new feature and you want to tell people about it. You can say something like this. We can say theme and then set theme. And let's see, what else are we going to want? I think just those things right now, and then import that. And now right above where it says home here, let's create a ternary operator. And I'm going to say if the theme is equal to light, then I want to put in an A tag. So I'm going to put in an A tag and it says, check out our new dark mode by clicking here. And then in this A tag, I can say on click and then have set theme equal to dark. We don't have to worry about toggling here because this is only going to appear if light mode is set. And so let's also just add a little bit of styling. So style and margin bottom of 21 pixels as a string. Okay. So now if we go to the home page, you'll see where it says, check out our new dark mode by clicking here. Click on that and it goes away. And it also toggled it for us. So you can see that you're not limited simply to styling or anything like that. You can also make the entire system even more dynamic based off of the current state, along with being able to set those values. So those are all of the basic components. Now let's add some other cool kind of styling elements. So inside of the nav bar here, we already styled the nav link, but we can also do some fun things with this switch here. So let's do that. I'm going to get rid of where it says theme, because now we can see what it is. So React Switch takes a number of other components and it lets us style it, and so it looks a lot better. So let's come in here, and in fact, let me go into our theme context file. And if you remember that one primary color that I built out, Let's export this so that we can actually access it in other parts of the application. It's not going to change based on the theme. This is going to be simply when we want that exact value. So when we want that, we want to have a on color, and we're going to set this equal to that primary color. And in our case, we want the on and the off color to both be the exact same. So now you can see that it has that nice blue color, and that looks much better. Also, this isn't really helpful. This isn't really a great user experience. If I'm coming to the site and I've never been there before, and I don't even know, what dark mode is, I'm not really getting a good idea of what it is based on this toggler. So I can also add a actual set of icons. So let's do that here. So I'm going to create something, and I'll put it in this file, and we're just going to call this let's just call it the theme icon. It's going to take one prop, and we could pass in a prop here. Yeah, we could pass in, there's a few ways we could do it. We could do it like this. I'm also going to show you in a second how we can even bypass this and make this even more flexible. So we have our theme icon, and I'll say icon to use. And we'll say if the theme is light, then we want to use one icon. If it's different, we want to use a different one. So I'm going to go in. I already installed this, but I just have to look up what the icon is. So I'm using the React Icons library. I'm using this for a demo. I do not recommend using React Icons in this library in a production application because it is a massive library and can slow your application down. And I found that out the hard way. So I wouldn't recommend it for production apps, but it is helpful for here. Okay, so for our light, we can really pick out any of these type of colors. You can also go with like a sun, something like that. So let's do that. So here, I'm going to import this. And this is going to be in the BS library of React Icons. And then this is if it's in light mode, or we want to do in dark mode. And let's see. And you know what, actually, the more I think about this, the more I'm thinking we can do better. So let's update this. So I'm going to say return, or I'll do a variable here. So I'll say icon size, and I'm not sure on the exact size. We can kind of play with it a little bit. 1.5 rem, and then here we can just say return icon to use, just like this. So now one thing you may notice, a very good question might be, you already know what the theme is. Why don't you just go, grab the theme here and then grab it from the context? Well, that's because we're going to call this twice. So we don't want the current value. We are trying to define this type of icon because we're going to want to have access to both of them. So icon to use, and then let's also do the size. So I'll do size and then set this equal to the icon size. And then size again, and set that equal to the icon size. So now we can call the theme icon, and the prop, I believe, is called checked icon. Yes, checked icon. And then that's going to be set to theme icon. And we're going to pass in not the theme value, but we're actually going to pass in the light here. Okay, and it doesn't like something here. So let's see what that is. let's see, theme icon, const, theme, return. Oh, you know what? We might need to wrap this up in a div. Okay, let's see if there's anything else it doesn't like. Okay, theme icon. Okay, that's fine. So it's simply saying this is a type, and it's saying that the theme light and dark is not going to be, it's not specific enough. That's fine. We'll worry about that in a bit. So unchecked icon is next, and we need to make that dark. Let's see if that's working or throwing an error. Yep, that is working, and we'll play with the styles a little bit. But that's looking nice. Now let's go grab our other icon, because right now we're using the same one for both. So now that is our light one. Let's pick out a dark one. So usually go with something like some kind of moon or something like that. I'm going to grab that, and we'll say BS fill moon and import it. Okay, let's test it out and see. Okay. Oh, looks like I'm doing it with both. Let's see why that is. Oh, let's see, I'm passing in dark, and theme is light and dark. That's interesting. Let's see, so theme is light, set it equal to the sunglasses guy. When it's dark, set it here. Okay, unchecked. We'll play with this a little bit. So let's try not doing it like this. And instead, we'll do a ternary operator, or a full check. So I'll say if the theme is light, then I want to return a div with the sunglasses. Else I want to do same thing, except with this other guy. And then we want to shrink the size a little bit. Okay, so we have our theme. That is our set of props. Oh, and you know what? I think I know what I think I know what I've been doing. And set that equal to a string. Okay, and then I'm also going to apply some styles here and set this equal to display flex, and then line item center, justify content center. Just so we can center this up. Okay, fix those error warnings there. Now let's see. Go sunglasses. There we go. Now it's working. Okay, cool. So that is all looking good. We can also do something like here saying height and set this equal to 100. And that centers them. And you can also update these colors as well. So here, when it's our little sunglasses guy, we also can apply the styles of color white. And if you're wondering why we don't have to do it for the moon, it's because this icon is automatically picking up the color that we set in the layout. If you remember when I told you that this is setting the default color, so when it changes to white, that little moon icon is being passed down the color value of white. So we don't have to change it here. So now for this should have already refreshed. Yep, that's all looking really good. I probably will decrease it maybe by just a hair. There we go. Perfect. So now you have a full light and dark mode system that you can apply to any of your applications. And the cool thing is you can take literally what we just did right here. You don't have to go and change your entire application. You can go wrap up all of the components that you want to have access to it in that theme provider. And then any of the child components that need it, like you saw, we didn't have to go and change anything in the about page or the contact page. And the only thing we changed in the home was adding some dynamic behavior. They all just simply worked based on how CSS and those kinds of things work. So you can apply these type of styles and this night mode type of behavior very quickly and easily. And as you can see, it's pretty straightforward, one, to implement, but also to maintain and to give some really nice kind of dynamic behavior for your entire application. In addition to like what we just built out, if you've ever seen a website and it had a little theme picker where you could pick, oh, I want the I want the blue theme for this website, and everything on the website had blue as a primary color. I wanted green, and they had a picker that had 10 different colors. This is exactly how you'd implement something like that. So hopefully you found that helpful, and hopefully you're going to be able to use that in your applications. So are there any questions or anything like that for anybody? I have the chat window open here. And while you're thinking about that, I'm also going to include in the show notes links to React Switch, because it is a very helpful library for anytime you want to create a toggler type of component. And then also React icons. Just be warned when you use it that its size is pretty large for one library. I had one project that was acting very slow one time, could not figure out why. The application itself seemed perfectly fine. And I finally ran a bundle analyzer and saw that React icons was taking up literally half of the entire bundle size of the application. So just use it with caution. So if there are no questions, I hope that everybody has a great rest of your month, and I'll be picking out another fun topic for next month, and I will see you all then.
Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.